Hello, friend, and welcome to Strange New Borgcast 2.3 with Peter and Anne-Marie.
Hello!
We got a bit previously on from Ad Astra, etc.
Apollo Ad Astra, yeah.
Yes, from Jeffrey Mark Hyman. I really enjoyed the discussion on this one, though despite the legitimate criticisms raised, I still found the strengths of the episode pushed it firmly into the classics.
Yep.
Anne-Marie's theory on how Patel is both a captain and prosecutor is elegant and canon as far as I'm concerned. There you go. To tell Memory Alpha.
Yay.
And finally, I'd really like to see The Rock starring in 12 Angry Men now. Wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all?
Yeah, we do.
But tonight we're covering Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which of course is a quote from...
Probably Shakespeare.
Yes, well done.
I assume you mean Macbeth.
To halt the stars, but we make amends.
Right.
Yeah, so equally wanky is a Latin title, but very typical of Trek, isn't it?
It's just here where we with that song.
Tomorrow, tomorrow, I love ya. Tomorrow.
Yeah, way to cheer me up with something from a musical. No, thank you. Right, yes, it's from, not Heidi, Annie.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, I've not seen Annie, I wouldn't know.
Lucky you is all I can say.
Who are you? How did you get aboard?
Help!
That's not from a phaser. It's from a bullet.
There's been an attack in the past. You have to stop it. You need to get to the bridge.
So, we start with a recap that points out La'an's genetics, and then it's her log. And amongst the various things that she says, it's always, thrilling when you have to search people's cabins or whatever. Pelia has just this massive hoard of stolen shit.
It's great, isn't it?
Which I love. And I love the way as well that she points to one of the paintings and says it's a fake, and I immediately went to a Doctor Who play.
It's a fake!
No, not the Star Trek, it's a fake.
No, I know, but that's where I went to.
Okay, fair enough.
But it's a fake! You can't hang a fake Mona Lisa in the Louvre!
How can it be a fake if Leonardo painted it?
With the words, "This is a fake," written under the paintwork, in felt tip.
But yes, you're right, written in crayon underneath.
Yes.
Very good.
And one of the things that I like, I know it's a sort of Chekhov's gone type thing.
Yeah,
but
it's a bit on the nose in the way they just
I love
plonk
the way,
it out.
But I love the way she says she has a bunker in Vermont just in case this no money utopia thing doesn't work out. I like that as a line. I like it. Then Arnie's sparring with Mbenga, and she's, given that they're supposed to be sparring, she's clearly being too aggressive. I like the way he just takes her down and just goes...
Yeah, and this is sort of laying more track, effectively, for Mbenga's backstory of being some sort of, having the super soldier business. So
yeah.
It kind of works done this subtly, doesn't it? So.
Yeah. I like the fact as well that, he's like, as your physician, and she's like, you're not my physician, you're my sparring partner. And he's like, okay, this tack clearly isn't going to work. But he knows that she isn't safe to carry on, so... And
some of the weapons on the wall, I'm sure we've seen that really awful episode of the original series, where they're all doing that fighting on the planet.
Yes. Gamesters of Triskelion?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Some of those lousy weapons there.
The thing is, though, seeing the weapons on the wall, I'm afraid it did not make me think of Star Trek at all.
Uh-huh.
It just made me think about Tiger Man.
Tiger Man from Buck Rogers. Wow, that's a drop down in quality.
It is a bit.
Even from Gate Masters.
Sorry. Yeah. And one of the things that you find out is that she didn't go to Una's welcome party.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back party. Which I don't... Part of me thinks that Una would have experienced that as a snub, but part of me thinks that La'an doesn't go to parties anyway.
No, she's not the partying sort, is she? So that's kind of in character, really.
Yeah. Anyway, she's patrolling the ship, and a bloke comes out of some kind of weird portal and cries help.
He's played by Christopher Willie. Sorry. I have nothing else to say about this actor other than the fact his name is amazing. Chris Willie. Well, how puerile are we? Sorry.
Oh, dear.
And with our surname, perhaps that gives us license to laugh at other people's, I don't know. But
yeah, you are the pee organ.
yes, I am.
So he's got a bullet wound and says that there's an attack in the past that she has to stop, and passes her this thing, and then there's like this weird effect. She goes through to the bridge, and it's Kirk.
Well, she says, I like this bit actually, because he says to her, get to the bridge. But actually what he means is not the bridge on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And I didn't pick that up the previous times watching. It was only literally tonight. I was like, oh, yeah, of course, get to the bridge. Nice.
Yeah. But it's Kirk there, and he's like, who are you and what the hell are you doing?
You mean not Kirk? There is no way that's Kirk. I'm sorry.
Well, you see, I've made a decision about this, watching this for I don't know how many times. Anyway, one of the reasons I like this is that I like this Kirk.
Do you?
The Kirk I don't like is Shatner.
Uh-huh.
So now I've rewritten it all in my head, and the one who's not Kirk is Shatner because I don't like him.
Wow. So
I like
bland.
this
I'm
Kirk.
sorry, this does not work as Kirk.
Yeah, but I've never liked Kirk to the extent that there were times that I was, for a very long time, just unable to watch the original series because I just wanted to reach into the TV and
It'd be
slap him
interesting
round
to hear
the face.
from Kirk lovers, as in original Kirk, how they feel about him. Like people like Tracy, who's a big fan.
Whereas I've never liked him. I put up with him. Whereas I like this Kirk, you see. So I've now decided this is Kirk and Shatner isn't.
Well,
It-
that would
it
work if
works
we'd never
for-
seen Shatner as Kirk, but
No, I have. But bearing in mind that I know that this is airing in our...
that's a hell of a lot of rewriting to do in your brain.
Yeah, but I prefer that than rewriting it the other way around. The idea that the reason people look up to Kirk, the reason that Spock is friends with Kirk is because this is Kirk, makes more sense in my mind than that Spock would ever be friends with that douchebag. So...
Yeah, except you couldn't imagine this guy doing Rafa Khan, could you? I mean, it would have been pathetic. So he's just so bland. It's like they found the most blandest actor ever. They obviously made the decision, we can't out Shatner, which is true. That would have been appalling. But so their decision instead was to go for the blandest man out. Bizarre.
I don't find him bland.
Oh, I do. Anyway,
I find him sweet.
I mean, I'd much rather they just didn't bother with the character at all, because, you can't have... I'm sorry, it's just... doesn't work.
But given that I don't like Kirk...
in the way that, that they managed to replace William Hartnell, I have to say, many times, actually, in Who over the years, to varying degrees of success, but ultimately, kind of like Richard Hurndall, and he's the guy from the Harry Potter films that did it, and he's also in Hot Fuzz.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah, that guy that we all know.
Dave. I think he's a
Yes,
Dave.
he is a Dave, isn't he? Yes. Anyway, I mean, he had a pretty good shot at doing a Hartnell as well. So you can do that, but you just can't do Kirk. It's just not possible.
Yeah, but the thing is as well, I was never going to be bothered by them changing who played William Hartnell. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't like William Hartnell's Doctor. I think, for me, this is the issue. This is why we're not going to agree on this, is because you don't hate Shatner. You don't hate the character.
I'm not a great fan of the man.
No, but you
But
don't hate Shatner.
ultimately, his performance as Kirk is kind of seared in the memory.
Yeah.
There is no way you can undo that for me, anyway.
Whereas I want to. I want to undo it. It doesn't matter how much brain wrangling
All
is
the
in-
mind bleach you've been drinking is finally coming out trumps
What
for
this
you.
is this is working as mind bleach is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I like watching this episode, because it's like, yes, this is the nice Kirk. This is the Kirk that works in my brain.
Uh-huh.
This is the Kirk who buys people hot dogs.
Right. It'd be fascinating. Can you do polls on Facebook?
I don't know. Yes, you must be able to, because
'Cause-
Lee's done them for the Black Dog.
Right, in which case I might put a poll up on the Facebook group just to see which Kirk people prefer. It'd be really interesting to know.
I am probably the only one.
I don't
And
know, maybe you won't be.
But I don't care.
Yeah, no, you don't have to. Don't worry. I mean, if you prefer this Kirk, that's fine. But I'm just curious to see who else... Yeah, well, if there's anybody else with my problems, we'll obviously find out a bit when it comes to feedback.
Oh,
but-
yeah, true. And the thing is, if you like the normal Kirk, in the same way as, I suppose, if you like the normal...
See, like
Bill-
is a strong word. But he's just so distinctive that I can't... That is Kirk for me. And
Whereas
for good and for ill.
frequently when I watch the original series, it's Kirk that pulls me out of it, and I can't suspend my disbelief anymore because of him.
There we are.
Even more so than some of the really stupid costume choices that are made in the original series, and some of the poor effects. It's Shatner's performance as Kirk, and sometimes it's the way it's written, and I've been more aware of that as we've been rewatching. But I like this Kirk. That Spock and Kirk are friends makes sense with this Kirk.
Okay, let's move on.
Sorry. Anyway, Talking of Spock, after the teaser, there he is as a Vulcan captain asking for help with their war with the Romulans.
What's the chances of that, eh? That it would be Spock. Hey. And a big question, by the way, since have we established at this point that it's a alternate... Well, it's not even the Starfleet, is it? Something else.
Yeah, it's the... I don't know. I think he says United Earth ship.
Yes.
And I think we get that in Discovery, the United Earth Force, after the Federation has collapsed.
All right. Anyway, what are the chances that the Enterprise would look exactly the same? I mean, they haven't even bothered to make it like a mirror universe, few tweaks here and there. It's just exactly
Yeah, but
the
mirror
same.
universes don't work. Either you're going to go with it or you're not.
But I mean, this doesn't work. The fact that the Enterprise would look exactly... I mean, it's not a ship of exploration here. It ought to be some sort of battleship, but yeah.
They ought to have goatees or something, shouldn't they? Really?
Well, the goatees I can do without. I must admit.
I'd love.
No, but the actual ship.
No, goatee
also,
Spock.
They
goatee
also have done a
Spock,
bit
yum.
They also done a bit of shifting around on the ship and made it, even just a few extra bits of paint here or somewhere.
To be honest,
the fact that it looks exactly the same is a bit cheap, but then that sums this story up completely.
I think actually what they could have done, even to be honest, is lit it quite differently.
That too, yeah. They could have gone down
think about
BBC cheapo, put a few
but there's
lenses on the camera.
Oh, what's that really annoying episode with Worf and his trophy?
Oh yes, we get lots of different realities in that, don't you? And the little tweaks. Nothing major, but just each one's different, and they should have gone.
And one of the dark ones, it's all very darkly lit.
Yeah,
it doesn't look massively different, but so that's the sort of thing I would expect.
Literally, all they've changed is the fact that it's obviously not Pike because apparently he can't be bothered to be in this series this year, and also the insignias are different.
Yeah, it should be more than that. I think it should be differently lit. I think it should be darkly lit as befits a warship.
Yeah.
That's what I think, anyway, even if nothing else is different.
Well, the Enterprise D in yesterday's Enterprise.
Yeah. Although that had some other differences, I think.
A few, but, the main thing was actually the dark lighting.
Exactly.
That was, considering how brightly lit Next Gen was, that really stood out.
And also, as well, I guess it would have been a spoiler if the corridors weren't as white.
Yes, I suppose that's the thing. As soon as
but they could have still had a more darkly lit bridge, though, couldn't they?
They could have done, yes. Anyway,
I mean, that's the sort of thing I'm thinking that doesn't cost a lot of money. Do you know what I mean? That they could have. It would have been nice to have something different there.
Hey, look at it this way. I might not be enjoying this series anywhere near as much as I did in season 1, but there's an awful lot more to talk about, isn't there? Season 1 was like, this is lovely. I love this. This is great. What else do I say? I don't know. Whereas this is like, what's wrong here? And why are they doing this? Where the hell's Pike?
Yeah, partly where the hell's Pike, but I think also it's because you and I were generally on the same page. Whereas we generally haven't been. I think there are some we are. But we're more likely to not agree with each other.
There we are.
Anyway, after sort of turning down the request for assistance, Lana says, I think we should talk about this privately, and basically explains that she's from a different timeline that no longer exists, and all the guy said was get to the bridge. And she talks about Starfleet, and he says, no, this is a United Earth ship. And she's like, what, this thing, either it's not working, and then he tries to take it, and she's like, no, I'm not giving it up. He's like, no, I'm going to let the people analyse it, and if it's safe, you can have it back. But she triggers it. Or he triggers it. I'm not sure whether she triggers it deliberately or it just happens.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're grappling and they both get zapped back. And basically he moans and she takes charge and is proactive, which I like. Mm-hmm. For some reason he assumes it's New York.
It's fascinating that, isn't it? Because it usually is, let's say, or San Francisco, actually, to be honest, in Trek. But really good decision here. Clearly they're filming in Toronto. Why not just make it Toronto? And that they were originally going to redress things to make it look like New York, and then they realised it's just so much cheaper to make it look like Toronto when it's Toronto.
Yeah. And she's like, no, it's Toronto, maple leaf, poutine. And he's like, is it always this freezing? And she's like, well, it's not that bad for Canada, which I like. Mm-hmm. And then they sort of talk about their Earths, and he says his was a battlefield and then a ruin, and he was born in space on the USS Iowa, whereas her Earth, isn't, she says in this timeline it isn't that different. And then she's like, look, we need different clothes, which is true. It's logical. Yeah,
and the clothes were one of my problems. It's like, okay, so literally the only idea of time we get in this is they say it's mid-21st century, so it's the future to us now and obviously the past to them. But why are the fashions all still clearly 2020s? That doesn't make any sense, because fashions change drastically between decades. So, give it 30 years and they're going to be wearing different clothing. But
no,
everybody's wearing the
they've
same.
gone for the cycle thing. So people now are starting to wear. I was going to say the clothes we wore. You probably never did. Women now and teenage girls now are starting to wear the clothes I did when I was a teenager. Things go in 30-ish years cycles.
Oh, right.
So it's all come round again.
Well, certainly beards did, didn't they? So, yeah, they were big in the 70s and then they became
But
very
now
fashionable in the 80s.
I remember having wide leg jeans, which is so impractical. It hurts. But wide leg jeans are back again.
Uh-huh. Oh, so by happy coincidence, the fashions have come round back to the 2020s fashions.
Yeah, which means this must be the 2050s.
More serious problem.
Okay, sorry, what?
The cars appear to be petrol still.
That's not.
Yeah. And again, they don't look particularly futuristic in any elements. I mean, it's again, cars' designs change drastically between the decades. They don't go backwards. So, it's cheap is the problem. It's like, if you're going to, they would have been better off saying actually it was the 2020s, because at least they would have saved the excuses.
Well, to be honest.
But then I say now it doesn't fit the idea of Khan and stuff, but of course Khan was originally in the 1990s, for heaven's
Which
sake.
they do say in this, 1992.
Do they?
Yes,
'Cause I thought they were supposed to reject it all.
the Romulan woman says she tried going back to 1992.
So this isn't...
So whether she buggered things up, I don't know. But
Yeah.
anyway, she said she tried it.
Apparently, according to Memory Alpha, they're now going with the idea that the temporal Cold War meant that the Khan stuff happened later, hence it hasn't happened yet. Which is all very well, but I really don't like to pay any attention to anything that happened in Enterprise. So.
Yeah. But for me, I mean, I'm sure Canada is more electric car friendly than the US.
I have no idea, because the downside of electric cars is they're not as efficient in cold climates.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, so maybe, yeah, but they weren't driving something suitable for Canada. Wasn't that a Ferrari they were driving or something?
It's a muscle car, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't
the bottom line is, unless we really are going to commit suicide as a human race, we are going to have to go electric, certainly by the mid this century.
Yeah, so the only way really to have got round them stealing a petrol car would have been a line about how, these are rare now.
And when you think that, in London now, you can't drive a car that's over a certain age unless you pay a lot of money.
And in Paris, you can't drive a car that's not electric now.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the way things are going. It just, Star Trek's all about looking to the future. They really didn't do it with this, did they? But never mind.
So then we get to go to the shop. They find their clothes to change into. They haven't got any money. He's like, "Can you run?" She's like, "No, I've got a better idea." And she puts something in this woman's bag, so it sets off the alarm. So the alarm's already going off, which enables them to walk out the door. And then she's like, "We can't do that again. We've got to find another way." And he's like, "I've got an idea." And this is one of the things where I've got a question.
Yeah, it's probably the same as mine.
What is it with this playing chess for money outdoors in the cold? What the fuck is this? I know it happens.
That's not the question I had. I mean, I've seen it in other things. It's very obviously it's a Canadian thing as well as the United States.
I know it's in an episode of The Simpsons. We don't have this. Do they not have bingo? And we have bingo.
I don't know. It's the whole thing. There's another film as well where they're playing lots of chess. Is it Rain Man?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just not a thing in this country. Besides which, presumably, because they're playing for money, he would have had some money in order to be able to have the first game.
Well,
how did he have the first game for free?
No, quite often.
In other films, what they've done is they've put something valuable down.
Yeah,
in
that's
place
what I
of
would
money.
expect.
But there's no sign of that, and obviously he hasn't got anything to do that with. So that doesn't work either.
Well, unless you just didn't see him put down something that had some kind of value.
Well, they needed to show it basically.
Yeah,
because it doesn't make any sense otherwise.
But this whole outdoor chess thing as well, like where I've seen it in the US, it's been where it doesn't rain much and it's sunny. In Canada, it's fucking freezing. Wouldn't they be playing chess indoors?
I have no idea. We'll have to ask Canadians about that.
Yeah, do we have any Canadian followers?
I think we might.
Okay, fair enough. Because, clearly this whole chess thing, it's just not a thing in this country. But I don't understand outdoor chess when the weather isn't suitable for outdoor chess. To me, it doesn't make any sense. And do you have bingo? Do you have both?
We must know, apparently.
Yes. Do you have both outdoor chess and bingo?
Wow, this is going to be a long
Or do you
podcast,
not really have bingo? We have bingo instead of chess.
We're worrying about which nations have bingo and we're in trouble.
But it just, Maybe I've seen this episode too many times, I don't know, but that's just what I fixated on. Was like, why are they doing this? What's our equivalent? And then it made me think maybe our equivalent is bingo, and then I needed to know if they have bingo. I'm sorry. Anyway, they're talking between the two of them now that he's got this money about, what is they supposed to do. And he's like, there's nothing threatening at all. It's all pleasant. And then he's looking at the sunset, and in his future there are no sunsets because they've had to leave Earth. So it's either all ash clouds or there's no sun because they're, living under the ground on the moon. But then he's like, I've got to buy you a hot dog. And I don't know why she refuses.
Yeah, I couldn't understand that either. Is she really strict about her diet or something?
I wondered for a moment if she was going to say she's vegetarian.
Yeah, that would have made some sense if she'd come out with that. I'm sure they do veggie dogs or something, but... Probably.
But... yeah, it's like, no, you're being offered a hot dog. Yum, yum. Anyway, he tells her not to turn down a good hot dog. But also, as well, I mean, this comes up later, but, if you're in survival mode, which they're in, because they're in completely unknown territory. I mean, I know it's Earth, but they're not used to it, yeah? One of the first things you've got to do in survival mode is find a source of food. He's just done that. And it's a hot dog. Anyway, then you cut to her being asleep, so clearly they've got a hotel room. And she's in full makeup, but at least there's a reason, because they haven't bought cosmetics. Plus, I did wonder whether in La'an's normal timeline, maybe you just touch something to your eyes and it does your makeup, and it's not the same as we have now. I don't know. Where is it that somebody touches their nails and it changes the colour?
Total Recall.
Thank you.
Sad that I know that.
But that was immediately what I thought of. But you get a lot of films where the woman goes to sleep with a full face of makeup and it's not realistic. Here it is, either because makeup is different in the future or because, they haven't gone shopping for cosmetics because they're more important things to worry about. And then she goes he appears to be on the sofa, and she goes in and just sort of watches while he's sleeping and then walks away again. And then you cut to the morning and he's got out of the shower and he says, that beats a sonic shower. Which makes me wonder what sonic shower does/feels like. Wouldn't you have water if you could? I suppose maybe it's a resource thing, and it's easier on a spaceship to make noise than it is to use water. But then if they can make anything in a replicator, why not make water? I don't know. Anyway, and she's trying to say, look, we need to write down our history of this timeline to compare the two so that we know where the changes happened. And he doesn't want to because there's a bar. I'm with him.
Minibar?
Minibar.
There's already beer in a minibar, though.
No, but sometimes there is. Usually there's spirits, though, like gin and rum.
One thing I should have mentioned, the music whilst they're playing chess.
We had to find our way back to the place where the morning sun.
I didn't notice the music. I was too busy thinking about bingo.
Weird sort of, I don't know, whether it's 1950s. It was very odd. I mean, not as bad as the music we get later, but just odd. So not used to having... It's not even contemporary music, though, because we're in the future and it just doesn't make any sense.
I don't. As I said, I was so busy thinking about the whole bingo question that the music escaped me, sorry, at that point. Anyway, he then says, look, I know where all this leads. Only one timeline can survive. Well, if I want mine to survive, then my best option is just not to do anything. And then she starts talking about her future and Starfleet, and he's like, we don't need anybody else, which is just so Brexit. It hurts. And then she's like, no, but, and then it's sort of like, but it's more than just surviving. You could be an explorer. Things could be so much better. And it's when she talks about his brother, because he's like, I might not even exist in your timeline. And she's like, you do? I don't know you. I know you from your brother. That sort of changes his attitude because his brother's dead in his timeline. Just as you get to that point, they watch the bridge blow up. And she's like, get to the bridge. And it was the longest bridge, they say, one of the longest bridges ever built. And it's destroyed soon after it was completed. But blowing up the bridge can't be the thing because that happens in both of their timelines. They both remember it or both aware of it.
You worked out why this bridge goes to, by the way?
No.
Apparently it's supposed to go to... They never state this, but apparently it's supposed to go to the United States.
Oh.
So that's one hell of a bridge, isn't it? I mean, my geography's a bit patchy at the best of times, particularly in the Americas, but yeah, guy. That's why they talk about it being a symbol of international cooperation.
Okay. And then they see somebody who's taking photos. And so La'an goes over and asks the photo she just took. and says, "Can you make it bigger?" Which means, she says, "What you mean, zoom in?"
This is Sarah.
Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be.
Yeah, played by Adelaide Kane.
I seem to recognise her from something.
Oh, interesting. Have you seen The Purge?
No.
She's in The Purge, apparently.
Okay.
And also 46 episodes of...
Neighbours. Everybody needs good neighbours.
Okay.
And yes, she's an Aussie.
Fair enough.
An Aussie actor in a US series being filmed in Canada. I mean, that's pretty good going, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think she's a really good actor,
Yeah.
personally. I think she does a really good job of playing the geeky innocent
Yeah.
and then turning on a dime
Yeah, later on.
without it seem like she was a completely different character, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was quite impressed with her, actually.
As a result of zooming in, Arn is able to say, that's a photonic bomb and they're not supposed to have that technology, but this event is supposed to happen, which is confusing them. So then they need to find out more about what's going on, and then if they need to travel, then they need a way of doing so. So he goes up and nerve pinches some dude. Now he's learnt it from a Vulcan, fine, but can humans do the nerve pinch? I always thought it was something to do with the fact that Vulcans had superior strength and could therefore, by knowing where to apply said superior strength, they could do the nerve pinch.
I don't think we've ever seen a human do a nerve punch before. Interestingly, Data could do it.
But then he would have the strength.
He would have the strength, you're right. So it doesn't make any sense really that he can do it, particularly since in our reality he can't.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they do the line that he was in a prisoner of war camp with a Vulcan, but yeah. Yeah.
Just for me, that doesn't work because
No.
one of the reasons is that, okay, yes, he was, like you said, he had the line about him being in a prisoner of war camp. But if a human could do it, surely in the original series, Spock would have showed Kirk by now.
Yeah, and other people would have done it as well.
Anyway, he then, you get the whole thing about him saying he's going to start the car and it goes backwards, just like that one in the original series.
Exactly,
where
a
they did
piece of the action. It wasn't
Yeah.
funny in 1968. It's still not funny now, I'm afraid.
No.
Dear, oh dear.
And then he drives far too fast.
Well, except it doesn't look fast, I'm afraid.
No.
Now, this is apparently it's the new thing, augmented reality technology.
Okay.
So they're not actually in a car. Yeah, they can now make it look like they're in a car, except, to be honest, they don't look like they're travelling that fast, do they? And even the filming of the car on the streets of Toronto, it doesn't look like it's going that fast.
No, well...
It's the feeblest car chase ever, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, Trek isn't exactly known for its car chases, so I suppose you could say they're trying something new, but, it's hardly Fast and Furious, is it? Blimey.
No.
Needed possibly a better director for this, or director at least had some experience of doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, this all happens to the accompaniment of some of the worst noise I've heard claimed to be music ever. It's just terrible.
Oh, I didn't mind it.
Ugh. Following some jeering from Sarah about Kirk being some civil rights lawyer, the police let him go. Yeah, like they do that after he broke numerous laws and he's driving.
Well, the
and he
thing
hasn't got a
is,
license
she starts talking about how he's an American, and I wondered whether that was something to do with the bridge being built if it's supposed to go to America.
Yeah, I think they're supposed to be distrustful of United Statesians, possibly.
Yeah. But then if this is a slightly different future, maybe they don't... A bit like, technically, we're part of the European continent, but you get a whole load of right-wingers who say, we're not part of Europe. And that's clearly where Kirk is coming from, and his whole we can do it on our own.
Sort of distrust of United States, and then there's even more reason why they'd lock him up, and yeah.
Yeah, not less.
It doesn't work, I'm afraid. Apparently she did this because they were following the van, which raised her interest. She suspects the bridge was destroyed because it represents international cooperation somehow, and this will stop people working together against the real threat, which is...
aliens.
Kirk claims his wife has abducted his wife,
Yeah.
and that the bridge was blown up by a photonic bomb. She spouts a load of conspiracy nonsense about human progress being slowed down by things like JFK being assassinated. How did that slow down human progress? Anyway, okay. La'an is rightly suspicious of her, but she shows them a bunch of images on an iPad, which includes a Romulan bird of prey. La'an rightly doesn't recognise it, but alternate Kirk does, which is fine.
Yeah.
There's also footage of a dude that was waiting before the explosion and made off with the wreckage. Who was that? We never find out.
Well, he looked a bit like the guy who got the bullet.
Did he?
At the start.
Well,
He was
La'an would have
wearing the
recognised
same...
him.
Well, you only saw the top of his head, but he was wearing the same uniform, that grey sort of uniform.
I thought it was black what he was wearing.
No, he was wearing grey.
You don't see his face anyway, so you can't tell it.
No.
That's just like a whole bit of the plot doesn't go anywhere. Kirk knows there'll be a Romulan first strike in a few days on a cold fusion reactor located in the city. They need a tricorder to find it, but neither of them has the engineering skill to make one, which is a nice touch, because in the original series, Kirk would have whipped one up from a bunch of valves in a jiffy, wouldn't he?
Or Spock would set Spock off as the science officer with something that has a thing that goes round and round and round.
Yeah. They travel to Vermont to see Pelia, it's obviously been established early on with a bit of a clunker of a line that she's there at this time. It's handy that she lived in Canada, not Ghana or somewhere, isn't it? They would have been screwed then.
That's true.
Apparently, they found her using something called DuckDuckGo. Have you heard of this?
I presume it's some kind of American search engine.
Yeah, ironically, you see, I had to Google it to find out what it was. But apparently, it's an alternate to Google that doesn't, grab all your data when you do it or something. But anyway. One of a number of things I've never heard of in this story. Ironically, she isn't an engineer yet, and there's some confusing stuff about watch hands glowing if exposed to the tritium that a fusion reactor would give off. No idea if that's a thing or not, but anyway, it's hardly the most elegant solution. It would have been far better if Pelia had been an engineer back then and could have built a tricorder for them. It made much more sense, but never mind. Kirk complains about not being the one to wear the watch, and La'an ribs him about wanting to be in charge. Well, that's in keeping with original series Kirk, certainly. He admits he'd rather live in her timeline. She calls him special for no real reason beyond, does she fancy him or something? Oh dear. And there's a reference to a novel I've never heard of. Had you heard of that?
No.
No? Story's just a list of things I don't get. She pretends not to have heard of it and gets called... Well, it sounds like he gets called an arse, which, yeah, fair enough. But actually, the subtitles say that she's about to say asshole, which doesn't explain why she says arse. But anyway, they kiss. The watch glows, so they're close. They're led to what looks like a museum, but turns out to be the Noonien Singh Institute. La'an's palm opens the door, although it's not a palm print, because that obviously wouldn't be on their system. So somehow... They
say it's the DNA.
Yeah, she says it's a marker in her DNA, although I had to turn the subtitles on to understand that line. There's an awful lot of bad sound mixing in this as well, it has to be said. But I can't believe...
Also, you're getting old.
Well, that's true. I'm going deaf.
Because I had no problem understanding that without the subtitles.
It's me getting old then.
Yeah.
But I can't believe a screen can analyse your DNA. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's the 2050s, and maybe...
Yeah, that's the one thing that's changed, apparently. Okay.
Well, not
all the rest of the technology is just like ours. But anyway, Syrah holds a gun at them, and Kirk works out that she's the one from the future. She says it's embarrassing how long it took her to recognise him, but to be fair, he looks completely different to the actual Kirk, so... And the hair isn't the same colour. They could have dyed his hair, at least. Anyway... Maybe that line was supposed to be self-referential.
Could well have been.
Yeah.
But also, I like the idea that the Shatner Kirk dyes his hair and really it's brown.
Mm-hmm. Her people have been slowing down human progress, apparently, and La'an IDs her as being a Romulan. I suppose the name was a giveaway, especially when you see it spelt out. Kirk points out that she won't shoot as alarms will go off in the building. You'd think he'd be bluffing, as he's got no way of knowing that. But and it's, not technology exists now, but I guess it might do by the 2050s. But how would he know? Don't know. Anyway, Sarai shoots him, and alarms do indeed go off. It has to be said at this point, it's not the greatest acting performance ever from Chong as Kirk dies in her arms. I mean, it's difficult because her character isn't generally supposed to show much emotion, but it does undercut the scene rather. La'an goes for Sarai, but is easily overpowered, and they enter some dull corridor. It looks like it's behind a sports stadium. Expect to see a hatch through which you can buy pies at any minute. Instead of heading for the reactor, Syrah changes her plan and goes for the genetics lab, which has the name on the door.
Yeah.
Syrah's plan is to assassinate him following a computer simulation which did a Harry Seldom for them, basically.
A what?
Oh, you not read the Foundation novels?
A very, very long time ago.
Ah, well, Harry Seldom was the one who had this science where he was able to work out what was going to happen in the future. La'an points out that she's a literal product of a Khan, but Syrah says the doohickey in her pocket protects her from changes in the timeline, which is handy. She tries to sell the plan on the back of La'an being free of the Noonien Singh legacy. And then a fight ensues, which is well staged, and ends in La'an shooting Syrah, and she does a cool self-destruct thing on her neck. The doohickey goes green, and a wee kid, Junior Khan, says, "Are you going to kill me?" So this basically leads up to an elaborate "would you kill Hitler as a baby" moment, which is kind of comes out of nowhere at this point. It's interesting.
It's sort of like that, and sort of with another layer, because it's if Hitler had descendants, would you kill Hitler as a baby and Hitler is someone you're descended from?
Yeah. Anyway, thankfully the actor playing Khan is not a white public school superstar, but Desmond Sivan, who's arguably the most accurate casting for Khan we've ever had, to be honest.
I think so.
Needless to say, Lan doesn't kill him, since that would stop the Federation existing, not to mention her, and she presses the green button and reappears on the Enterprise. On the bridge, that's the actual bridge of the ship, Pelia is being interrogated by Una and Pike over her plunder. Yes, this week's blink and you miss it moment from Pike.
Yeah.
I mean, you thought they'd shot things out of order and spread the stories with him out a bit more, but I guess they may also have been dealing with the complexities of COVID at this point still, I'm not sure. Lan says they should let things slide with Pelia, but when asked by Pike whether something is wrong, rather than doing the obvious and reporting on what's happened, she walks out. Which is odd, but fortunate, because in her quarters is an agent from the Temporal Investigations, played by Alison Wilson Forbes, who was in what TV series, do you think?
Because the thing is, my go-to with you is usually BJ and the Bear,
No.
but I'm not sure she's old enough.
Strange New Worlds, the go-to series is always The Expanse.
Oh, okay.
Literally, the episode but one, previous episode but one, like everybody been in The Expanse.
Okay. The problem is with
Plus, I get to play another jingle that'll annoy Andy, so results.
Fine.
Anyway, yes, this is the same agency that was featured in Trials and Tribulations.
They were more fun in that, though.
Exactly,
weren't they?
that was comic. This is definitely not. This is taking it quite seriously, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. Lan is ordered not to tell anyone of her experience, so it's just as well she didn't blab at the obvious time. After what seems like an age, she hails Lieutenant Kirk, who naturally worries that Sam had gotten into trouble. Memory Alpha points out this is the first time we've seen Kirk Prime chronologically, since his previous appearances were in alternate realities. You think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't be and.
This Kirk reveals they were born in Riverside, Iowa, which is the first time the place has been officially narrowed down beyond the state. And to be fair to Chong, she does a really good job of showing how upset Lan is once she ends the call. I mean, that is really good acting. So,
I mean, I think for me, the reason she doesn't break down when he dies is her training. She's on a mission. And she is very like that.
I kind of wish she'd just stayed silent at that point and professional and bit her lip. That was better than
actually just a scene of her saying nothing and biting her lip, possibly even so that it bled.
Yeah, that would have been
a lot better. But that's not the actor's fault.
No, not.
But I think the other thing is that the reason she doesn't, I think it's in character for her to not say anything when she goes onto the bridge, partly because it's like, where do I start? And also because, again, she's feeling emotion and she doesn't want to show that emotion in front of other people. She has to be alone to let the emotion out. So while I agree the scene where he dies isn't right, I don't think it would have been right for her to break down at that point. I think they should have done something different with it. I think that it's right that she doesn't get emotional, but what she does just sounds stilted.
Yeah, and
it
sounds like bad acting is the problem.
And it's not, because she's a very good actor. I think it's bad directing. Okay. And bad writing. Mm-hmm. I think she should have said nothing at all.
Exactly. Anyway, ultimately, this is an okay time travel adventure. I mean, Pelia's inclusion is nice. It's a bit weird considering they could have made her an engineer and given them a tricorder, but never mind.
That would have been too easy. Yeah. And also wouldn't explain all the art from the beginning. I mean, I love the idea that she's not an engineer yet. She's from a really, really long-lived species.
But you wouldn't have needed that whole weird business with the watch if you at least knew how to use a tricorder. But anyway, then there is a degree of emotional weight at the end with the Khan reveal. But ultimately, I think this story is mainly hamstringed because it centres around La'an and this dude who blatantly isn't Kirk. who we've only met in one. I mean, okay, so you've made the jump here that for you this is Kirk, and the other one isn't. So in which case, this is the dude you've met twice, and the other one was. This is an alternate universe one, and the other one was an alternate universe one as well. In some ways, it would have made more sense if she'd been there with another member of the crew, but then again, if they wanted to force a romance angle into it, which apparently they did, it would have been hard to have made it any of the regulars other than maybe Una, who's already featured centrally in the previous story.
Yeah. I think the part of the point of this is, though, that I suspect it's because she's the security officer on the Enterprise. She can't let her guard down in front of anybody on the Enterprise. It takes someone who's not on the Enterprise for her to be able to let her guard down.
And also, I guess if they wanted to kill the other characters, they're not Kirk, then it couldn't be any of the regulars for that reason either. Although that's not to say they haven't killed regulars in the past, of course. But you know,
so for me, it works in that it's not anyone that we know in order for her to break, the barriers to break down. I really like the exploration of her character, that because she's the reason she's bottling everything up is all to do with her heritage and the fact she thought she was a monster. It's going off of what we saw last week. That's why she's carrying so much anger and confusion and emotion around. It takes someone who she is not responsible for directly, because she will feel responsible for anybody on the Enterprise. So it takes somebody outside of that group for her to be able to let her guard down. Whether or not the romance would ever have actually worked, or whether it was just she needed anybody to get close to let that happen, and actually, potentially it would have just fizzled out after a bit. I don't know. But I like this Kirk. I like the earlier Kirk because his personality is the same. Nobody's personalities are different in the way that they are with the mirror universe on DS9, for example, where people's personality, you haven't got that here. Nobody's suggesting that people's personalities are different.
Well, all that got quite silly after a while, didn't it? That's fair enough.
I like the fact that Pelia isn't an engineer yet. I think it makes sense for somebody who is so incredibly long-lived to have tried all sorts of different things. Because she says, doesn't she, that the biggest issue for her is boredom. Mm-hmm. So she's not an engineer yet, and so maybe now she becomes one. I like that.
But you did not find the whole business of the watch a bit odd?
No.
I mean, the watch glows. We must be near a reactor. What? I mean, for all I know, this is scientifically definitely true, but
I think
it just
there is something...
seems really hokey to me.
No, I'm sure there is something about quartz and it glowing. Obviously, they're making up the stuff about tritium and whatever, but I'm sure quartz watch hands... It's not. I think maybe they are.
It's all a bit clunky, and it would have been a lot better if you just had a device, even if it wasn't as high tech as a tricorder that they could have used. But anyway,
doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. What does bother me is something actually you haven't mentioned yet, and for me, it's the biggest clunker in the whole episode, which is that when they're in the facility, she puts her hand on it. As I said, either you are going to go with, in 30 years' time, we can use DNA from a hand scanner, or we can't. I mean, you don't see these scanners anywhere else, so arguably this is technology specific to the Noonien Singh Institute rather than generally available. But even so...
I can't see how you could tell somebody's DNA just by looking at a palm print.
No, but then 30 years ago, somebody couldn't have told you how you could look something up on your phone. So, technology moves on. So, bearing in mind, okay, you've bought this bit, you've gone, fine, that works. It turns the light green so they can go through. But there's then an incredibly long gap before it goes red. Surely it's got sensors. It knows how somebody hasn't gone through it. It would have gone red much, much sooner. I'm just thinking about the technology we have now in our offices. You put the badge on the thing, it makes a beeping noise, it goes green, you go through. If for any reason you don't go through because you're chatting to a friend, or like me, I've dropped something on the floor, by the time I've picked up the thing that I've dropped on the floor, it's red again. I press the button, the action of pressing the button makes me lean forward, I drop something on the floor again, and I'm there yo-yoing like a fucking moron in front of this door, which, by the way, every time you bend down, of course, no one can see you, so nobody even knows you're there, desperately trying to alternate between picking up the shit I keep dropping and getting the door to open. That's now technology. There's no fucking way that somewhere that secure is going to let those lights stay green for that long.
Fair enough.
And for me, more than anything else, even more than the car, that was like, no.
And also the fact that it's clearly contemporary Earth, it's not actually Earth of 30 years' time, makes it feel a bit cheap. I mean, it's great that it's not the United States, or Canada pretending to be the United States.
Yeah.
It's nice to be somewhere different.
But it doesn't look different enough, really,
No,
does
it doesn't look like the future at all, I'm afraid. They haven't even made any effort there whatsoever. So
It needed to be really nearly in the future.
yeah, it need to be like most 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to say 10 years tops. Yeah.
But if you're going 30, then I would imagine things have changed a bit by then.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless humanity's already going backwards a bit, I suppose. But
So it's all right.
I like it. I like this Kirk. I like watching this Kirk.
I'd be happy not to see this Kirk again. I mean, it's just...
No, I like him because he's better than
Rubbish.
Shatner. He's more relatable than Shatner. He's nice. I find him sweet. He's also understated, which is the opposite.
I mean, he could have been call him something else. He could have been a completely different character and it wouldn't have mattered. But the fact that they're trying to claim it's Kirk when it clearly isn't doesn't work.
I don't like Kirk, so making him someone
Yeah,
else.
so if they made it somebody different, that would have worked for you as well. You see,
to be fair, yes, you're right. It could have been someone else, someone completely new.
Yeah.
It did need to be somebody not on the Enterprise, but you're right. It could have been someone else who was also completely new, and it would have worked for both of us.
Yeah. But trying to sort of put the weight of it being Kirk on it doesn't work if it doesn't seem like Kirk.
That aspect doesn't bother me because, it's not Shatner. So I like this Kirk. I like La'an. I like this being part of the journey she's on. That, when she says towards the end, you are right where you need to be. And I like that she can't contemplate killing a kid. It's part of her coming to terms with
Certainly,
her
by the time
heritage.
you get to that point in the episode, it feels like it suddenly ramps up a gear or 6, to be honest. And it's suddenly got some weight to it.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. And the whole, we've been leading up to, can you kill Hitler? And especially, as you say, Hitler, who also happens to be your ancestor, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. I presume that might well have been the original, pitch.
Yeah.
But it takes too long to get there is the problem. So.
Yeah. I don't mind the inclusion of the Romulan woman and the Romulan
No, she's
war.
okay. That's quite good.
That's fine. Don't like the car.
And the car chase is just completely lifeless.
No. And I think that if they couldn't spread Pike's absence through the episodes, I think that they should have done what a lot of series have done, particularly the original series, and varied between production order and airing order.
Yeah.
And I think that they should have
The
done...
only reason why they might not have been able to do that, if they were struggling to get the scripts out in time because of COVID reasons, they might not have had that option to be able to film out of order.
Okay, fair enough.
It's the only thing I can think.
Because
I do remember there was some question over whether they were going to manage to do all the filming in time or not.
Okay, fair enough. Because I would think that, because you've now got... he hasn't really been around very much now for 3 episodes.
Exactly. I mean, you've had, all the other Trek series, there'll be a story or two where the captain
But they'll be spaced
doesn't
out.
feature very often, but you wouldn't get 3 in a row. That's
No,
madness.
you would have had, you'd
So you have the guy who does the voiceover and then not appearing in his own series.
And I was aware of it, and it's one of those things where if this episode had been later on in the season, I think it would have felt better.
Yeah. And
I don't think it needs to be episode 3. It needs to be before the musical episode because of one of the scenes in the musical episode. And I'll say no more than that. But other than that, that's the only thing that polices it within continuity. Mm-hmm. You're not about to tell me that the next episode is a musical episode.
Oh, no. It's
good.
towards the end, I think.
Yeah. So this could have shifted. Unless, as you said, COVID meant it couldn't.
Anyways, let's find out what other people thought. We've heard from Thomas McCambley.
Hello.
Loved that episode from start to finish. Would have loved to have had a whole sub-series of Kirk and La'an chess hustling all across Canada.
Yep, that would have been good.
My friends and I spent a week trying to work out exactly how a bridge across Lake Ontario from Toronto to New York would work, but we're nutty that way. It'd certainly be to have a long bridge, wouldn't it?
Okay, can we do a map thing? Can someone do a map thing? Maybe you do it in the Facebook group or something. I don't understand where this bridge is going from and to.
Well, if I just look at Google Maps here, okay, and I pop up Ontario. Okay, so there's Toronto, and there's New York. So they're basically opposite sides of this great big lake.
Okay, why didn't... So you got the Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's stopping the bridge being there.
Presumably.
Okay.
Don't know. This is part of our problem in not really knowing about the geography of this area as to whether how significant that was all supposed to be. But there we go. Glad you enjoyed it.
Why can't they fly? Oh, I'm really confused now. Why do they need a bridge?
I don't know.
Sorry. Anyway, we've heard from Jeff, who writes, "This is another classic in my opinion. Shades of City on the Edge of Forever and The Voyage Home. An inspiration, but its own unique spin on the time travel romp. I owe Paul Wesley a big apology. Once given the opportunity, he's able to show a lot of likeable charisma and a touch of the swagger that Kirk needs. Christina Chong is fantastic, and it's nice to see the character rounded out more completely here." Yeah. This is, I mean, I don't know that Kirk needs swagger, because I just really don't like the original series Kirk. But yeah, he likeable charisma, definitely he has. And certainly agree that it's really good to see Christina Chong's character being rounded out. And I really like this. I don't think I'd class it as good as The Voyage Home. That's Star Trek 4, isn't it? The one with the whales.
It'd be in real trouble you start comparing it to that, considering how amazing that is. Because this just feels so cheap in comparison.
It doesn't to me. There are flaws in it that I'm not aware of in either of the two you mentioned, City on the Edge of Forever or The Voyage Home. But I really, really enjoy it.
The only thing this has in common with The Voyage Home, other than beyond the fact that obviously it's time travel, is that it has some shockingly awful music in it.
I don't know. I don't know where I'd put this exactly. I do genuinely really enjoy it, but it's not top tier for me. Mm-hmm. I think that's fair to say. It's not top tier. So probably classic is not unfair. I probably am thinking of it as a classic, but it's not quite as high as you're putting it. But I'm glad you enjoyed it like me.
And we've heard from Sampo and Yona.
Hello.
Hello.
So we just watched Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow and so on.
What happened in it?
Well, I've got mixed feelings because, I mean, in a void, I think this was a really good hour of television. I really liked it. But it was a really strange episode 3 of a season because taking into account the last episode was the trial one. It seems like we're 3 episodes into the season. This show has a great cast and we haven't seen almost any of them.
Yeah, every episode is from one perspective.
Yes, I mean, the first one was a bit of an ensemble piece, but episodes 2 and 3. And I mean, okay, if the captain's actor had paternity leave, okay, fine. They could film this out of order. I think this could have been a much better, like, I don't know, episode 7 or something, because now I still liked it, but I had this nagging feeling that, I mean, I'd like to see the rest of the cast as well.
Maybe we get to see Uhura next week.
I mean, how many cast members are there? I mean, there are 10 episodes, so, I mean, if every episode is just one person centric, well, I'd rather it wasn't. Let's just put it like that. So, I mean, this episode went quite deep into Trek lore, and it tried to explain sort of timey-wimey why the eugenic wars didn't happen in the 90s, as apparently they'll happen somewhere after 2020s then. But I mean, you, without knowing much about the lore of Star Trek, how did you feel about it? Was it confusing or was it easy to follow it?
I think it was easy to follow, mostly because you told me things beforehand.
Yeah, I did mention just the beginning of the episode. But by the way, her ancestor was a big war criminal. And I mean, they went almost the entire season 1 without even mentioning it. So good on them to wait until season 2 to actually address it. And I think they did it fine.
I was happy to find out that Louvre is still existing in their timeline.
Yeah. Good.
Don't know what the painting was that Pelia had stolen from them, but proves 2 things, at least, that Louvre doesn't forget.
Yeah, even after 200 years, they're still angry about some missing painting.
200.
5 minutes later.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, so I paused and explained to you that Star Trek only happens 200 years from now. I mean, it was the 60s, you know. They thought we'd have flying cars by now. What? I mean, was this our feedback? We haven't even mentioned Kirk yet.
The who?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I thought they would go the entire episode without mentioning him, and you were like, who is he? I'm James C. Kirk. Who's that? I'm the captain of the Enterprise. Oh, okay. Yeah. But like you said, he didn't look anything like him. So, yeah, fair enough. So, yeah.
Such a good episode. I also liked the idea that when something massive happens, it doesn't happen in this like New York, but instead it was in Toronto, which is a little bit of like marginal.
Yeah, everything doesn't have to happen in one of the America's big cities.
Yes, exactly that.
But yeah,
there were plenty of things that reminded me about something that I have probably seen in the last track we watched, the one where they had the car.
Oh yeah,
they were driving it. That the gears were a little bit off, and then in the reverse gear they had wrap.
Yeah, I think the gear thing was a nod to the Mafia Planet episode. I think so.
Yeah, maybe.
A very subtle one.
Yeah, and the Kirk thing as well.
Yeah, that was a bit of a nod to the old. Okay, but yeah, I mean, like I said, in a vacuum, I liked the episode. I would have preferred that this came a bit later in the season. But okay, let's end the feedback here.
Yes, I'm happy.
Okay, well, bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So like us, they would have preferred it later.
Yes. And like me, she didn't recognise that as Kirk. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and I like that. Well, yeah, that was a little nod to the Mafia Planet. And she goes like, yeah, and like Kirk. I like that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I still, I want flying cars. Where's my flying cars?
They are probably unlikely because the practicalities. I mean, let's face it, road cars are dangerous enough. If people take to the skies, it's just going to get just horrendous.
Okay.
Unless they're all computer controlled, that's the only way that's
then
going to
I
work.
can drive one.
Exactly. But
I want the self-driving cars because I can't drive, so I want a self-driving car. That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's nice to think that the Louvre still exists. It's interesting that Jonna found it easy to follow because she'd been briefed. Do we have anybody watching this who wouldn't have been?
I don't think so, no.
It would be interesting to know how easy it would be for someone to follow who'd only ever watched Strange New Worlds and never watched TOS.
It's hard to imagine that such a person could exist. But anyway, I suppose that's a possibility.
Well, I'm just thinking, is there someone younger? Maybe they've watched Discovery. Do you know what I mean? New Trek. What did the Llama God make of this?
Lagerslag, Scotty, Fixicare, yeah, Fixie Shack. Oh boy. Well, here we are then. 3 for 3. This is another great episode in a row. And yes, I did like this one. There you go. That's that done out of the gate. So before we go any further, I do, of course, have to address the obvious ham in the room. And that is, of course, the presence, once again, and possibly an unwelcome one, of one James T. Kirk. His presence here obviously asks the question is, do we need him? Why is he here again? Because this is a show about Strange New Worlds. This is about the Strange New Worlds casting characters. We don't need to know about James T. Kirk. There's been, several series in a film about him. So, yeah, we don't need to know any more about him. In this episode, though, I find it not too bad. And there's a few reasons. I mean, the first one is obviously the cast absences. I know we've already spoken before about Anson Mount's absences, but I also believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I also believe that Melissa Navia, Ortegas' actress, wasn't also available. If I read correctly, her partner died, so she requested to actually have a lighter workload. So again, there's possibly a reason why we're getting a few more guest stars in this season. So that's one of them, maybe. Secondly, of course, this once again isn't actually the James R. Kirk that we all know and potentially love, and so that means that this isn't actually an episode about him as such, which then begs the question, why him? Why actually bother bringing him at all? Why not just have another? Well, I guess they at least know the actor, and there's kind of significance there. But I think crucially it works in this episode because this isn't our Kirk. It's not the Kirk that we know or are going to know and we're going to care about, and so that means that we don't actually care about him in the same way, and the episode actually isn't about him at all. This episode is about La'an. It's about her and how she deals with the situation that she's found with. You could argue that rather than teaming up with an alternate Kirk, she could have teamed up with alternate versions of her own crew, but that would have led her to have questions based on her existing relationships, and then it wouldn't have been purely about her, it would have been about them as well. Obviously, if they keep using this little trick, and it would be great, wouldn't it, if every time we saw Kirk in Strange New Worlds, it actually wasn't our Kirk, it was actually an alternate Lieutenant Kirk. That would just be a wonderful little gag. I would quite appreciate that. But we'll see how that goes. I think if they keep overdoing it, and if Kirk was to ever pull focus at any moment, then it would become problematic. So we'll see how they cope going further down the line. But yeah, it also works because the actors here actually have some decent chemistry. Yes, the actor playing Kirk, and sorry, I've forgotten his name, isn't William Shatner, and nor is he Chris Pine either. He does seem to lack a certain charisma, but the performance that he does give in this episode as a war-weary James T. Kirk kind of works. But yeah, the two actors do have a nice chemistry, and it does bring out a lot of stuff about Lyanne. We do get to really focus on Lyanne because this is her episode, this is her story, this is her figuring things out. Yes, it's both her and Kirk together, but she's the one who leads the way, and she's the one who figures things out and brings it to an end. And yeah, we get to learn a lot about her emotional state, and not so much her backstory, we know that already, but this is a good one of her growing and figuring things out. And yeah, I really like it from that point of view. We get to spend a lot of time with Lyanne, so yeah, I do appreciate that. And we also get to find out that she isn't actually as tall as she might look sometimes, because did you see the size of those platforms that she was wearing when they would travel back in time? Yeah, actually I met Christina Chong at a convention a couple of months back, and yeah, she is really quite tiny. So yeah, I was wondering through some of those scenes how they managed to film her so tall. Yeah, huge chunky platforms, so yeah. But in terms of character, yeah, it's good to see more of her in there as well. The story itself is of course a classic, and it's a well-trod tale. It's rather tropey really, but it's well done here. And we've got time travel with a shade of killing baby Hitler, and yeah, it's the kind of thing that's been done before, but here it's done well, and I don't mind it, especially because we don't actually linger on the baby Hitler that they've gone to kill, i.e. young Khan. And yeah, we only learn that his presence there at the end. It just becomes a thing that helps Lyanne come to peace with her own self and her own heritage. So again, that works here. It works for that character. And it's also nicely reassuring that finally the actor playing Khan is of the correct ethnicity, so well done there. And also, yes, I know that Khan's come up before, but at least this time we don't get to see Brent Spiner. So yeah, we could have had a rather scenery chewing turn there. So yeah, I think there's small mercies we should be grateful for. I do like the nice bit of misdirection with the bridge. You know, they get to the bridge line, it turns out it wasn't the bridge of the Starship. That was a nice little thing there, nice little play on words. I like that one. We get the obvious couple of time travelling gags, like Kirk thinking he can drive a car but not being able to, but they don't linger on it. It's not like in Piece of the Action, and that's good. And we get the whole revolving door thing, which I think we saw in Galactica 80, but this time Lyanne actually calls Kirk out on how he's unable to manage a revolving door. And I do like his callback. I'm from space. And yeah, they wouldn't have revolving doors in space, would they? It's all about airlocks and stuff. So yeah, kind of makes sense. But yeah, I found that funny. It was fun to meet Pelia and get a bit more of her backstory and how she was something more of a shadier character than I might have expected. And yeah, we do get a romance between Lyanne and Kirk, but it seems to develop organically, actually. It doesn't seem forced at any point. It's just two people coming together because of the situation that they're in, and I felt that kind of just worked rather naturally. And it was nice to see that develop slowly over the course of the episode. Although we do get that earlier scene where Lyanne wakes up in the middle of the night, and Kirk, although he's sleeping, his love sense tingles and he rouses himself. But he's being a bit more of a gentleman than he might come to be later in time. So yeah, I'm grateful that nothing happened that early in the episode as well. What I do like in this episode is a rather cheeky explanation for the somewhat sliding date for the eugenics wars, because obviously we haven't had World War III yet, and so they need to explain that somehow. And it's all because of timey-wimey shenanigans, because of time travellers all going back in time trying to stop Khan. But time tries to heal itself. Yeah, whatever. Basically, Khan's always going to happen. He's an idea that will happen eventually. And you know what? Depressingly, seeing the state of the world, I tend not to disagree with that at all. So yeah, it's a nice little idea there that just explains a little bit of continuity for those people who want to care about continuity like that. So yeah, I found this to be a particularly great episode, very enjoyable. And yeah, as I say, it may be full of well-worn tropes, but it does them really well. And especially when you think about it, this is essentially all of Picard Season 2, but just done shorter and better. So yeah. So as ever, I'll be looking forward to finding out what everyone else made of this. I hope that everyone's enjoying all the fiddles that are being played. And until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Yes, that's a very good point. Yeah, at least this is only one story worth of this thing rather than an entire season.
Yep.
Fucking Picard.
Yeah. You're right, the actors have a nice chemistry. And no, this isn't Chris Pine. I remember liking the 09 reboot, you didn't. I like the last one, whatever that is. I think maybe I haven't seen him enough to comment really one way or the other.
Beyond is the third one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Star Trek Beyond!
I think I certainly haven't seen him recently enough to comment, but I think I still preferred him to Shatner.
I think Chris Pine has got the same level of cheesy charm, smarm. So in some ways he was quite a good fit for the role. I never had a problem with the casting. Misremembering, I don't think I had a problem with the casting. And obviously, your man who played McCoy was absolutely brilliant. Chap who was Judge Dredd.
Oh. Yes.
Yeah, so he was fantastic. But
Lord of the Rings man.
I had a problem with them throwing out the basic concept of Star Trek to try and make Star Wars. That was my issue with it. The reboot films. There was no exploration. I think it was just Star Wars. Like, what? Anyway.
Yeah. And yes, hooray for no Brent Spiner.
Yeah, indeed, yes. Cool. They drag him in.
With the revolving door. I live on Earth. Fucking hate them. For me, it's the same as trying to get onto a roundabout as a child. You have to get the timing right. I hate it. They have them to the doors to our offices, and I would use...
You really have fun in your office, don't you?
Oh, don't.
It's designed to be your own personal hell.
Yeah, yeah. So I would, if I could, use the disabled door, but somebody got that wrong recently, and it's all taped up, and all the glass is shattered, and apparently...
And you've never seen them again.
What a scuttlebutt is, somebody charged it with a mobility scooter.
We don't talk about Dave from accounts anymore. Poor Dave from accounts.
Yeah. But, so the only way in is through these bloody revolters. I just hate them. I don't do 3D space, okay? And it's moving 3D space. Fuck off, okay? Just give me a door.
I think I had clocked that Christina Chong was short because she looked really short against Rebecca Romaine. But that might just have been because Rebecca Romaine's really tall. I don't know. But
I think it's both. I think
they make a funny odd couple, don't they?
But I think Rebecca Romaine is tall, and Christina Chong is short.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of both. I don't know whether they do the whole Robert Downey Jr. thing and stand Christina Chong on a box for various scenes.
But you're right, those heels were quite something, weren't they?
I wanted them boots. I mean, to be fair, with my back, I wouldn't be able to walk in them now. But I used to have some similar.
Right. Well, thank you, sir. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yay! Me too.
Finally, the Purry.
Hello, Orcs. Purry here to talk about tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. I can't remember how many and tomorrows there were in this. And I wouldn't call this Strange New World's first real dud, but it's definitely one of the first episodes that really not quite hit for me. Now, part of it is, it's not a bad episode. It's perfectly serviceable. It's entertaining. There were some bits I enjoyed, and there was some pathos in it. So, in general, there's nothing physically wrong with it. I think the problem is that when you're doing an episode this kind of by-the-numbers sci-fi cliche, it's the equivalent of doing... It's not a Groundhog Day episode, but kind of the equivalent of doing something that every series has had a shot of. You kind of have to do something remarkable. And if we're honest, its alternate universe at least doesn't hang around to become a pain, Picard. But likewise, we've seen a more interesting alternate universe in something like, say, Yesterday's Enterprise. We've had a more interesting discussion of whose timeline is right in Yesterday's Enterprise. I hate to compare this to Yesterday's Enterprise. It's not all there. But it kind of mixes that with your kind of Star Trek 4 style fish out of water comedy. And like I say, it does everything fine. Nothing is done badly. There is, my wife's quite correct gripe that Kirk seems to be awfully good at driving a car. Now, I know it's an automatic, but seriously, I think a wee throwaway line of, oh, my uncle had a classic car or something might have just made that a bit more believable. But probably not, because he grew up in space. So how would he learn to drive a car? Again, those are the things that my wife brought up while watching the episode with me. But yeah, in general, like I say, it's not done badly. I mean, there are a few bits, like how they get money. Kirk hustling chess. I could be wrong, and the Toronto chess hustling scene is huge, and you can make big Canadian bucks with it. But again, that kind of just doesn't quite hit. It just seemed like the writers couldn't work out a way for them to not have to worry about money anymore. And in fact, I thought selling a badge, they're not comm badges, they're just gold badges. Selling a Starfleet badge or his not Starfleet badge would have been quite good. Actually, we do get a brief parallel universe, and I quite like it's not an evil universe, it's just different. And that's to kind of have that discussion about things going wrong. So it's like just a not as good Federation. It's like not an evil future, just a bit rubbish, which I quite like, but I wouldn't want to see more about it. Leave that for Star Trek Online and fanfiction writers. I'm quite happy with how much that we got in the episode. I liked using Pelia's long life as a bit of a thing in this, even though she was only partially helpful, but still it was nice to see her in the past, kind of have that tie-in to all her stolen art treasures in the future. I like that, and I liked this theming of Lan being lonely, partly because she's kept people away with her genetic heritage, and partly because she's chief of security, and as a result, quite often is having to tell people to stop it. But yeah, I think one of my gripes is I wish it wasn't a relationship. I think I'd have preferred to see another member of her crew with it rather than Kirk, because Kirk's just like this other guy. And it's also an alternate Kirk, so it's not even normal not Kirk. This is not Kirk. And the problem with that is that we very much have our 48-hour relationship. She now loves him to bits because she's been with him for 48 hours in a stressful situation and seen him die. It doesn't quite. I say I'm now a bit more cynical about these things. And to be honest, I actually thought it would have been nice if it had been one of the alternate crew, but someone like Ortegas, who ended up going back with her, and at the end of it, she's going to try and make a friend because she's not got many friends. She's got like Una, and that's about it. And I would have maybe been more interested to see it as a friendship rather than a relationship thing. Partly that is because I kind of know where that one goes. And yeah, so it's kind of a plot thread we didn't really need. But overall, like I say, it's not a terrible episode. I've been quite down on it. And there are some good things. I love the Romulan agent complaining about how the eugenics war keeps moving around. It's got a Let's Kill Hitler vibe to it. And I thought Anne's story genuinely worked. Aside from the Kirk relationship, which didn't work for me, the whole idea of her being tempted to erase her genetic heritage was quite good. It's not terrible. It's just maybe not the greatest episode. So all that remains for me to say is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I'll hopefully be back in the next one. But until then, bye for now.
Bye.
We have agreed that it didn't have to be Kirk, but it did need to be somebody that wasn't part of the crew in order for...
Well, except it could have been, as he said, an alternate, because it's an alternate universe character, so it's equally pointless that it's Kirk. So it could have been, I mean, I just looked it up, and yes, the actor that plays...
Ortegas, she had lost a partner, yeah.
So it couldn't have been her, I guess, but it could have been. I mean, in some ways, it would have made more sense to be Mbenga, really. But it could have been alternate Mbenga, which they then killed. So
yeah, but even if it's alternate, if it's going to look like someone if it looked like someone that she is responsible for, she would not have let her guard down. So it had to be somebody separate from the Enterprise crew, both either real or alternate. Either way, it couldn't even look like them. She wouldn't have let her guard down. But it didn't need to be Kirk. But in terms of the relationship, it's one of those things that it's almost like it works for her and she's mourning it so much in her head because he died. I think it only ever would have been fleeting. She was letting her guard down.
Well, let's face it, if it was Kirk, it would have only
been fleeting. To be fair.
It would have only lasted an episode.
Yeah. But even if it hadn't been, even if it had been...
She would have been just another ex-wife.
I wouldn't have got far as wife.
Yeah, but I mean, there are so many exes that he bumps into, aren't there?
Yeah, but I really think it would have been, she'd have let her guard down with him briefly. They probably would have had sex, possibly more than one occasion, but it really wouldn't have lasted because that wasn't the purpose of the relationship. It was all about her being able to let her guard down for the first time, and a whole load of emotions were mingled in with that. It's almost like being. I did feel
I agree with Perry. It came unnaturally quickly. There didn't seem to be any chemistry, and suddenly there was.
No, I felt there was chemistry.
Not from the beginning. I mean, the point is that they were at odds to begin with, and then they suddenly change, and it.
Oh yeah, but then that's the whole love you, hate you thing. You know, being.
I don't buy it, I'm afraid. So.
Despite how often we argue.
That's different.
There are some people of which
we only argue about pathetic things.
But there are some people of which I am one who cannot connect with someone if they can't argue with them. She's even more like that. The character, I mean, of Lara.
I just didn't really see what she saw in him, but then.
And as I said, ultimately, it wouldn't have been anything. I absolutely do not see this as a relationship that would have lasted. It was very much a case of, it was somebody she was thrown in with. She's in emotional turmoil. We know that from the teaser before she's taken into this time jump thing. And it's somebody she can let her guard down with because it isn't somebody she has to be or feel responsible for, particularly because actually he himself is going to stop existing. Because the timeline is going to fit. I mean, I know he's in her timeline, but do you know what I mean? That actual person, whatever happens, they can't be together anyway. So it gives her a freedom to release those emotions, and because there's so many of them and they're thrown into so much proximity, people thrown into close proximity in a crisis often end up in a sexual relationship, so that aspect doesn't surprise me at all, even though they don't.
Is that a natural thing? I thought that was just made up by somebody for purposes of drama.
It's not a guarantee. It's not you will feel sexually attracted to somebody you're in a crisis with. It's that you can, and it does happen sometimes.
And I bet it doesn't happen as quickly as this.
No, but then maybe that's with stable people, and we know she's not stable at this point.
Anyway, selling com badges. I'm sure they've done that in the past. Literally in the past, easy. I'm sure that was featured in an episode.
But and is it that there's a metal in them that's...
Yeah, it's like gold, which isn't particularly valuable to them in the future, but it is in the past.
Oh, gosh.
It rings a bell, and I can't think what that was.
I'm sorry. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I can't remember.
Anyway, well, if people know what that is, I'm sure that there's an episode of Trek where they use their com badges as currency, effectively.
What I was going to pick up on in Parry's feedback is the references to yesterday's Enterprise. That is top tier.
Oh yes, definitely.
You know, this is you don't like this, I do. We're not going to agree on that point, but we are going to agree on the fact that yesterday's Enterprise is better than this. That's an area where we can agree, and I would not put this in the same category as that. I really enjoy it. I really like it. I get a lot out of it. But yesterday's Enterprise is a properly classic golden episode.
Well, where do we go to next? We're recording on Thursday the 14th of March, and we'll be covering the episode Among the Lotus Eaters, which I have, ironically, no memory of. Well, there's the one thing I remember about it is, yeah.
Locust Eaters or
Lotus?
Lotus is the car. Lotus is Spree. It's in a Bond.
No. It's flowers, darling.
Is it?
Yes.
Somebody eats flowers?
Yes.
I haven't got a fucking clue.
You don't remember this
is.
one either.
Well,
that is
I'm not
ironic.
saying I don't remember the episode. The title is giving me nothing.
There we go. As you'll find out, that is deeply ironic. Okay, we'll catch you then. Take care.
Bye.
The Star Trek theme was written by Alexander Courage, and here was arranged and performed by Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Pelastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Shut it down!